Hi everybody, I'm Dr. John Douillard and welcome to LifeSpa.com, and today I want to talk about how to safely travel, particularly in the air this summer. Lots of us are back on airplanes and it's wonderful, but we want to stay safe when we do that. So how do we do that? You know, when I was in India and I was studying and I met Deepak Chopra and I was traveling in a different city every weekend for about 8 years, I went back and saw my teacher and he looked at me and he said, "You need to stop crossing time zones." And I was like, what? I never even heard of that. That was like 1987 or something. And he said, yeah, it's messing with you. He didn't say circadian clocks. Kind of forget exactly what he said, but he said it's not good for you. You need to stop crossing these time zones so much. Stop traveling too much, basically. And then a study came out not too long ago that I've written about. It was a study where folks went from New York to Israel and back in a kind of a non-stop kind of thing. And they measured their bugs before they left. They measured their microbes in their gut before when they came back. And they found that the healthy bugs they had in their gut, when they did that one trip of jet lag, actually shifted to become more and morphed to become a gut microbiome that was more prone to diabetes and to obesity, just from that one round trip. So the jet lag thing is very, very real. It affects our circadian clocks. It disrupts them, and it leaves us in a point where our biological clocks are out of sync with nature's circadian rhythms. We have clocks that turn on and off all day long in every cell of your body, and they need to be kind of in sync. So how do you bring that back? Well, one of the best ways to do that, I'm going to give you a handful of ways that I use when I did travel a lot. And one of those is melatonin. New research on something called low-dose melatonin has been shown to actually not suppress your own production of melatonin, but actually encourage your own production. So the really cool idea about taking low-dose melatonin, very, very micro-dosing, is that it can actually encourage the production of your own so you can get on it, get better, and get off of it after you've encouraged natural production. Now we know that the light in our house, in our rooms, everywhere, the screens and everything, they've really disrupted our circadian clock. You know, you go to bed at 11 o'clock. In the wintertime, the sun sets at 5:30. That's 5 or 6 hours of melatonin production you just simply didn't get day after day after day, month after month, right? So it's really, really important. And then when you cross a time zone and travel, it can really negatively affect your circadian rhythms, and it's really hard to get that reset. So you can kind of nudge those circadian rhythms with a little bit of low dose melatonin. I usually say 5 to 10 drops during your travel time when you're before you go to bed to help. And that's each drop is 0.1 milligram. It's a tiny micro dose. You can't buy that in the store, but a little bit of that, just 0.5 milligrams, can usually get you to stay in rhythm and help your body recover, you know, that much more quickly. You know, when you have a circadian disruption, you can become more tired, you can get headaches, you can have a lack of appetite, you can get brain fog, you can get a host of digestive issues, sinus concerns. I mean, the list goes on. Lack of melatonin production can cause anxiety, worry, depression. I mean, it can affect your mood, your sleep. No sleep causes a lot of issues. So it's really important to recognize that. Another thing that I found, I remember this is another study or story. I was traveling to Moscow many years ago. It must have been 1992. And it was a very, very long flight, and I was writing a book at the time, I think, and I was just typing away and typing away and typing away. I had a little tiny handheld computer, and but my trick was I brought some Nausea Oil for your sinuses, and I put in a little spray bottle, and I kept sniffing it throughout the flight. And I must have worked for 6 hours solid. And this little Russian woman next to me sat there, and when we were getting ready to get off the plane, she looked at me and she said, "Don't you ever get tired?" And I was like, you know, normally I do on planes. I like to meditate and shut down, but I was just lit up while I was doing these nausea therapies. And then from that point on, I knew that keeping my sinuses dry and keeping them lubricated was a tool to bring your vata back into balance. So the air travel, the circadian rhythms, the radiation, the dry air didn't aggravate your vata. So you walk out of the airplane with a little bit of a headache. I felt like I never took a flight. It was really an amazing experience. So even just a little bit of olive oil, good quality olive oil in a little bottle that you can sniff on an airplane, you know, or get some good Nausea oil, phenomenal way to beat the jet lag to beat the aggravating of vata, the aggravation of your nervous system when you travel, which is, I think, really important. Another thing that happens when folks travel, they get constipated, because what happens, all the vata goes up into their head to try to deal with the fact that my circadian rhythms are in New York, but my body seems to be in London, and I can't quite figure that out. So the body brings all its energy up. This is the Ayurvedic philosophy. And the vata that goes down, called the Panavata, to help you move your bowels, it goes up. And it classically makes you constipated. So all the energy here isn't enough to support the circadian disruption. So everything that goes down comes up, leaves nobody home for menstruation, for elimination, and that causes issues. So I formulated years ago a product called E-Lim number 1. E-Lim number 1 has got a little bit of trefoil in it, and then it's got slippery elm and licorice and a tiny bit of psyllium, very small amount, just to bring the water to the capsule to make slime, to make a demulcent, slimy kind of concoction that when it goes through your intestinal tract, it makes it very slippery, very unctuous, very oily, very vata balancing. And it keeps that intestinal tract moving in a downward direction and doesn't allow it to just come up and therefore deplete your apanavata and create issues with your lower elimination. And if you can't take the trash out when you're traveling, that makes you vulnerable to a host of digestive concerns, right, as well, which is really important. And if you have weak digestive agni, I would also suggest taking something called Warm Digest, which is a digestive spice of ginger, long pepper, and pipali. And you take that and you take 1 capsule before each meal, when you're traveling, to just help fire up that digestive agni, because the trip will actually lower your agni, and then that makes the food go undigested into your intestinal tract, and that can make you either gain weight, bloat, and just feel sort of uncomfortable during your entire trip. So that's another one tip you can do. And then finally, just the immunity factor. Melatonin is an antiviral. I mean, Donald Trump, when he had COVID, he was prescribed melatonin. So realize there's a lot of powerful antiviral benefits there, but also an herb called ashwagandha, one of the only herbs that's been shown to be the most powerful adaptogenic herb to help you cope with stress, particularly travel stress. And it's a powerful immune booster. So that's another herb you can take, a week or so before you leave, and then take it during the travel. And once your jet lag, seems to wind down and you're back in rhythm, you don't necessarily need to take it the entire time unless you're really going and you have a lot of stress. And you can take it for the way back, for the jet lag on the way back. So anyway, there are some great tips. There's a great article on my website at LifeSpa.com. It gives you more information about how to kind of handle the summer travel, particularly with all the crowds and the craziness this summer. A little bit of extra immune support and jet lag and circadian support can go along.